Hi guys, welcome to week 6 of our online outreach where we are bringing ZSL Whipsnade Zoo to you whether you're at home or at school. Now, for those of you that remember, my name is Danielle and I'm one of the Senior Learning Officers here at ZSL Whipsnade Zoo. And for those of you who have joined us before, can you maybe remember what the ZSL in ZSL Whipsnade Zoo stands for? Well, if you're saying to me ZSL stands for the Zoological Society of London, then you are absolutely right, because as well as Whipsnade Zoo, obviously London Zoo, and those of you who are tuning in who visit London Zoo, usually fantastic, thank you very much. So London Zoo and Whipsnade Zoo both belong to ZSL, but the Zoological Society of London is in fact an international conservation charity, and we also work in over 50 countries all around the world helping to look after animals in their natural habitat, and that includes animals like these guys who join me today, our amazing elephant herd here at ZSL Whipsnade Zoo. So we've got 6 elephants in our herd. We have our male Ming Young, who is 12 years old, and he's in a separate yard that he has all to himself, apart from when he comes and meets the ladies. But behind us you may spot today any one of our 5 female elephants. So we have Kaylee, Karishma, Luca, Donna and Elizabeth. Now Elizabeth is our youngest elephant. She's only 3 years old and she's actually named after the Queen because she was born on the Queen's birthday weekend. And then Donna is the next youngest. But then we have Kaylee, Luca and Donna. And Kaylee, just behind us, Karishma, just behind us, is one of our old elephants. And you can see there she's exhibiting some of her natural behaviour, pulling her food down from the hay net. So have a look out, see how many of our 5 you can spot today. But what is our topic, you may ask, as we're here at Elephants? Well, we promised you that we would talk about evolution today. And we're talking about evolution because it kind of feeds in to all of the topics that we've covered so far. So we've thought a bit about habitats and where our different animals live. We've thought about their teeth and diets. And we've thought about some adaptations, so things that they have that may mean that they're suited to live in their habitats. It helps them to survive in their habitats. But we promised you we would talk about evolution to talk about how those adaptations occur. So first of all, let's have a look at some of the adaptations of our elephants before we move on to how they might have occurred with our animals. So what elephants do we have here? So there's 2 types of elephants. There's African and Asian, but we have Asian elephants here with us, and we're going to talk about how you can tell the difference in just a little while. But let's have a look. So the first thing that you might have noticed when you saw Karishma eating from the hay net was that long trunk. Now I want you to have a guess at how many muscles are in that long trunk. What do you think? Tell the person you are with now, whether that's at home or at school. Okay, you had a guess? Okay, well if you said less than 1,000, that's not right, I'm afraid. If you said less than 10,000, that's not right either, I'm afraid, because in fact our girls here have over 40,000 muscles in their trunk. Now, just to put that into a bit of perspective for you, when you're thinking about how many muscles we have in our whole body, we have around 800 muscles from our heads to our fingertips to our toes. In total, just 800. These guys have 40,000 just in that trunk, and that means that that trunk is a really useful tool for them. So they use it for smelling. You can use it as a snorkel for when they're swimming, okay, because they're actually really good swimmers. They can also use it for moving things about, lifting things, eating, breathing. So it's a brilliant tool for them, okay, and it is a fusion between their top lip and their nose. So what else have we got? We've got their ears. Okay, so their ears are really great for keeping them cool, because in fact elephants don't have sweat glands. So what they can do is they can use those to flap to keep them cool in the place that they live, because the habitats that they live in are typically very warm. So our Asian elephants here come from Southeast Asia. So if we're going to have a look around on our globe and we go all the way around here, we can see that this is where they would come from, whereas our African elephants also live in a hot habitat, but they would live in the continent of Africa around here. Okay, so because of that, they use those ears to flap and keep them cool. Now, something else you might know that is on an elephant is these. Okay, now what do you think these are? Can you remember from our teeth and diet session? Okay, so these are called tusks. Okay, and if you remember from our teeth and diet session, all tusks are elongated teeth, so long teeth. And in the case of elephants, they are elongated incisor teeth. But with Asian elephants, like we have here, it is the males that have those tusks. Females don't generally have them. Now, they might have slightly elongated incisors, and they're called tushes. Okay, so they're not actually long tusks. It's the males that have those. But again, these are really useful tools. They can use these for scraping up bark, for digging in soil. And did you know that just like we're either left or right-handed, elephants are also either left or right tusk. They have a dominant tusk, and we can tell that because usually one is more worn than another on an elephant. Now, when an elephant breaks or loses its tusk, unfortunately they do not grow back. Elephants only have one set of tusks. They need to look after those really well so they can use those as those great tools for digging. Okay, so what other adaptations do our elephants have? Well, you may have seen in cartoons before, quite often people like to show elephants as ballet dancers, but there is a really good reason for that, and it's not because it's comical because of their size, so you may think they wouldn't be very good at ballet, but in actual fact our elephants walk on their tippy toes. Okay, so they are tiptoeing, but then they have a big fleshy pad that actually helps to spread the weight over the rest of their foot, because obviously as a heavy animal, and our Asian elephants can be up to 6,000 kilograms each, they need to spread those feet so that they can spread that weight so it doesn't hurt their feet too much. Okay, so they've got that lovely tippy toes and cushioned feet to help spread their weight around. They've got their tusks, okay, to help them eat, and their trunks to help them eat. And that's really important because our elephants do eat an awful lot every day. So they can go through lots and lots, and that's why sometimes our elephants might come into conflict with humans in the wild, because they are looking for food, and as their habitats are sadly being destroyed, they then go and look for food elsewhere, and they can go onto farmers' crops. Now what happens with that is then maybe there might be some conflict between the people and the elephants, and maybe elephants can get hurt, so we don't want them to do that. So one of the things that we do at ZSL is helping the wild with that, and one of the things is to do with what elephants are scared of. Now elephants are actually scared of bees, so by helping local farmers put beehives around their fields, we can give the farmers an extra source of income because they can use the honey from the bees, but also the elephants, when they hear the bees, get scared and they go away from where those crops are and they won't eat them. Now because our elephants do eat an awful lot, and they eat a lot here at the zoo, can you guess what they also do a lot of? Okay, well, if you guess that they pooed an awful lot, you're absolutely right. So this is what an elephant poo looks like. Okay, and if you can imagine, our keepers spend a lot of their day picking up the elephant poo, because for each of our elephants here, they can do about the equivalent of 200 chocolate muffins of poo a day. So that's an awful lot of poo to pick up, but that just tells you just how much food they eat to produce that much waste. Okay, but when they're eating that, another special adaptation that they have is to do with their teeth. Now you might be able to remember this from our teeth and diet session, but there was something very special about elephants' teeth. Can you remember what that was? So first of all, can you remember what type of teeth they might have? Because if I tell you that they are a herbivore, they eat plants and vegetables, what kind of teeth would they have? They're a mammal. Tell the person you're with now. If you said molars, you're absolutely right. So this is an Asian elephant molar. And you can see it be nice and flat on the top there, so they can grind that food as they're eating all day. But can you remember what we said happens to that tooth? If they're eating all day long, it gets very worn down. And you can see with the grooves on the top of the teeth there, they are usually raised, but as the elephant eats more and more, they will get worn down. So when they lose their teeth, what happens is it's very special. Another one comes forward, a bit like a conveyor belt. Not like our teeth that come up through the gums, they come forward. But what's extra special about them is how many sets of teeth they would have in their lifetime, because we have one replacement set, but elephants have up to 6 in their lifetime. So that's another special adaptation that enables them to be able to eat lots and lots of food and still be able to eat without losing their teeth over time and having no teeth to be able to eat with. Okay, So that's some of the adaptations of our elephants. So we said that we talked to you about what the difference between our Asian elephants is and, say, African elephants, which are the type we don't have here at the zoo. Well, first of all, we talked about their ears, and those ears being useful, okay, for keeping them cool. Well, our Asian elephants here have smaller ears than our African elephants would. So actually, funnily enough, Asian elephants' ears are shaped a little bit like the country of India, whereas African elephant ears are shaped a little bit like the continent of Africa. Okay, and we're going to come on to why they're much bigger in a minute. Okay, but African elephants have bigger ears than these guys, and these guys also have a little dome in the middle of their head, so you'll be able to see a bump. If you look carefully on our girls today, you will be able to see that. Now, the other thing is the size difference. So Asian elephants are generally smaller than African elephants. So I said to you that these guys can weigh up to about 6,000 kilograms, which is about 90 of me, so that's still pretty big. But African elephants can actually weigh up to 7,500 kilograms. So they are generally much bigger in size. And they also live in different types of habitats. So these guys here, I said to you they live in Asia, and they would typically live mainly in forests. That could be wet or dry forests, sometimes even rainforests, and some of the grasslands there, whereas our African elephants on the whole tend to live in the savannas of Africa. And if you remember back to our habitats, we talked about the differences between the rainforest and there being lots and lots of plants there, but when we talked about the savannas of Africa, we talked about there being 2/3 of savanna in Africa, and we talked that there was a lot less trees and plants there. So that might get you thinking about why the size of these guys might be different. So we are thinking about why they've got those differences. So just to demonstrate here the ear difference, you can see that this is our Asian elephant here, okay, and this is our African elephant. You can see the difference in the size of those ears. Well, the reason for that is generally Africa is hotter than Asia, so our African elephants need to waft those ears much more to keep themselves cooler in that heat, which is why they have those larger ears. Okay, also to do with the size, well, our Asian elephants are slightly smaller, and that's because if you're going through the forest, you want to be able to be a bit smaller to get through all those trees and undergrowth than you would if you're in the open savannas. Okay, now one question we quite often get asked about elephants is what kind of sounds they make. Now, you might have heard them make loud trumpeting sounds before, but one of the other interesting adaptations to do with elephants is infrasound. Now, all infrasound is it's noise that is at a lower pitch than we can actually hear. Okay, so elephants do make noises that we can't hear when they're making them. They're at such a low pitch, and it's a bit like us singing, okay, or shouting maybe to our friends. So it's really useful for these guys when they're in herds and they're in a forest to be able to communicate with the other elephants in their group. Now, we've just talked about why some of those differences between our African and our Asian elephants, and that's to do with the habitats that they live in. But can you remember also two animals that we said were closely related? So they're different species, whereas with our African and Asian elephants, obviously they're all elephants, but we had two species we talked about in our adaptations week where they were very closely related in terms of classification. They were the same family but different species, and they had different adaptations to do with the different places that they lived. Tell the person now if you can remember. I'll give you a clue. The first one was a very tall animal that we have here at the zoo. Do you know what that is? If you said giraffe, fantastic. So what was the animal that was closely related to our giraffe? Now, if you're saying to me a carpy, fantastic. So just so in case you can't remember or you haven't joined us before, this is what our carpy looks like. And we have a carpy here at London Zoo, over at London Zoo. And our giraffes that we have here at Whipsnade Zoo and at London Zoo. Now, they belong to the same family, but there are some differences. So think about, first of all, let's think about what's the same with them. So just to recap, okay, they both have that really long prehensile tongue that can wrap around branches and pull off the leaves and bark, and that is also that great colour that helps to protect it from the sun. But if we look at them here, we can see that they're actually really different. Now, the giraffe is really tall, okay, and has a patchy pattern, and our okapi is much shorter and has stripes on it. And if you can remember, we talked about that. The reason for that being is where they live. So our giraffe, again, just like African elephants, lives in the savannas of Africa, okay, and the giraffe has to reach up tall to get its food so that it's not competing with animals, because there aren't lots and lots of trees. So it has evolved to have a long neck, because giraffes that have the longer neck have survived better. Our okapi lives in a completely different habitat in the rainforest, like our Asian elephants here can, and because they live in the rainforest, the food is all around them. They don't have to reach up high for them, so they haven't evolved in the same way as the giraffe to need that long neck to survive. But let's have a look how the giraffe would have come to have that long neck. So as we said, animals don't choose to have these features. So the giraffe didn't choose to have a long neck to be able to reach the food, but the giraffes that were born with a longer neck survived better, and they were able to pass that on to their children. So to do that, to have a feature that helps us to survive in a different habitat, we need first of all to have lots of differences in our species. So does anybody know what we call that when we have lots of differences between our animals? So if you're looking at the elephants today, you'll notice that they don't look exactly the same. There's slightly differences between them all. So some of them are hairier. So for example, Karishma is quite hairy if you have a look at her, whereas if you had a look at, say, Donna, she wouldn't be as hairy. So what do we call that? Well, if you're saying to me variation, fantastic, okay, and that's the same with you. So if you have a look with the people that you're with now, okay, you're all humans, we're all mammals, but you will see some variations. You might have a look at your eye colour. So some of you might have blue eyes, some of you might have green eyes, some of you might have brown eyes. So that's a variation within the species. Now, where do we get those variations from? Now, where do you think you maybe get the colour of your hair from, your eye colour, maybe your freckles, if you've got some lovely freckles in the sunshine? Where do they come from? Well, of course, we get them from our parents, okay? They're passed down to us, and that is what we call inheritance, okay? So to have evolution, we need to have, first of all, variation in our species, and we need to have inheritance, so for features to be passed on to their offspring. So we're going to show you a little demonstration of how that can happen. So first of all, you are going to pick to be one of my animals, my zweebs. Now these are not real animals I'm going to show you, but within our species we have a variation. We've just got a very noisy drinker behind us. Hello there. She's been very noisy having a drink. You might be able to hear if you listen really carefully to her trunk. Can you see if you have a little look? She's really thirsty because it's quite a warm day here today. We'll give her a minute. She might just be playing, but we'll see if she's going to have a little drink and you can watch it go. Just while we're watching her and waiting for her to have a drink, you'll notice that she's got a lot of sand and soil on her back, and that's what they do with their trunks, just to protect. There you go, in it goes. Did you hear that big gulp? She's definitely thirsty. She's going to keep doing it now, so keep your eye on her as well as me, okay? But yeah, that sand and soil that you can see on their back is another thing that they use their trunks for. They throw it all over their backs to help protect them in the sunshine, protect their skin. Okay, so let me show you my zweebs. So these are our creatures called zweebs, but they are not real animals. You will not find them here in the zoo. But within our species of zweebs, we have 4 variations. So we have a yellow long-haired zweeb, okay? We have a yellow short-haired zweeb. We have a green long-haired zweeb, and we have a green short-haired zweeb. So in our species, there are 2 main variations. It could be your colour, or it could be the length of your hair. Now, I would like you to choose for me which of these zweebs you're going to be. So do you want to be yellow long-haired, yellow short-haired, green long-haired, or green short-haired for the purpose of our demonstration? So choose now and tell the person that you're with what zweeb you're going to be, because there's no changing once we've started. Okay, ready? I'm going to count down from 3, and then you've got to have chosen and told the person you're with. 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Okay, so our 4 zweebs live all together, and they live in a habitat just like this. Okay, so you can see in our habitat there are some colours that match the colour of our zweebs. So we've got some green trees, green bushes, we've got some yellow grass. Now, why would that be useful? Think back to some of the adaptations that we've talked about with our animals. And I'll give you a clue. I was talking about patterns on the okapi and the giraffe. Now, if you're saying camouflage to me through the camera, you're absolutely right, okay? So our zweebs here, our animals, can camouflage in this habitat, whether they're yellow or whether you're green, because there's cover for you. So that means you're not likely to be eaten by a predator. And if you remember, a predator was an animal that ate another animal. Okay, so we've got good cover. The temperature's not too hot, not too cold, so it's okay whatever our coat length is, and we all live here happily together. But over time, this habitat starts to get a lot wetter. And because it gets a lot wetter, but it still stays warm, okay, so what do you think? If we get more rain, how is my habitat going to change? And I'm going to give you a little clue. If you have a look where the yellow grass is, would something happen to that if it had lots of water? Maybe think to the plants and grass in your garden. What happens if they're a little bit yellow? That usually means they're quite dry. And if they get lots of water, what might happen to them? What colour are they going to go? Well, if you are shouting to me, green, you're absolutely right, because it's a lot wetter, our habitat becomes a lot greener. Now, who do you think is going to fare better in a habitat where it's a lot greener? Remember, think about the things that we said were important before. So, is everybody going to be able to hide just as well? What do you think? So, would our green short-haired zweeb, thumbs up or thumbs down? Would they live okay in a very green habitat? I'm seeing lots of thumbs up. You're absolutely right. They would be fine, okay? So what about yellow long-haired? How would they do? It's going to be a little bit tricky for these guys because they're not going to be able to camouflage, are they? So what about our yellow short-haired? If you're thumbs down, you're absolutely right. That's another problem, isn't it? They are not going to camouflage either. But green long-haired? Come on, thumbs up. Yeah, that's right. They are going to be able to camouflage. So actually, our green long-haired and our green short-haired are going to do really well because they are going to be able to hide from predators. But our two variations of our yellow zweebs, unfortunately, are going to get eaten by predators much more easily. And over time, more and more of these guys are going to be eaten, which means that there will be less of them to pass on their yellow colour to their babies. So we're going to have less and less yellow zweebs until, unfortunately, there's going to be none left. So I'm afraid if you are a yellow zweeb, you have become extinct. Remember, that means we've got none left anymore. But good news if you are a green zweeb, because if you are a green zweeb, you have been able to avoid all the predators, or you're more likely to, and you are able to then have a family and pass on your green colour to your babies. So we will have more and more green zweebs until we're just left with our two variations of green long-haired and green short-haired zweebs, okay? But over time, my habitat continues to get wetter and wetter. So it's still really warm and still really wet. Can you remember what habitat from our Habitats Week? Very warm, very wet. What do you think? Starts with a R. Should we say it after three together? 1, 2, 3. Rainforest! Yeah, well done. Okay, so over time, our habitat becomes more like a rainforest. So we're left with our two types of zweebs. Who's going to do better this time? Is it going to be our green short-haired zweeb, or is it going to be our green long-haired zweeb? Tell the person with you now. Who do you think will survive better and why? Okay, well, if you are a long-haired zweeb, what's the problem? It's really hot. So actually, you're not going to do very well with this big thick coat, and also it's very wet. So if your coat gets really wet, it's going to take a long time. You're going to be soggy. You're not going to do as well. You're probably more likely to become ill. So over time, unfortunately, more and more of our long-haired zweebs will die, which means they are not going to pass on that colour, that long coat, through inheritance. So we're going to lose our long-haired greensweebs altogether because there'll be less and less of them, less of that passed on, and there'll be none left. So if you are a long-haired greensweeb, I'm sorry, but you have died. But if you are a short-haired greensweeb, you've got the perfect coat to survive really well in that rainforest. So you will be able to go on, have families, and pass on that short-haired gene to your babies. So we'll have more and more until we're only left with these guys. So if you picked short-haired greensweeb at the beginning, fantastic, because you are the surviving variation of Zweeb in our new habitat. Okay, but we just did that in a couple of minutes. How long does that take in real life, do you think, to go from 4 variations in a species to the ones with the features that are most suitable for their habitat surviving and the others becoming extinct? What do you think? What would we have left? How long would that take? Now, do you think it takes a couple of weeks? A couple of years? A decade? Well, actually, it takes a really, really long time. So we're talking millions of years. That doesn't happen really, really quickly because habitats don't change overnight. And also, remember that variation has to be passed on to be inherited by the offspring, and we have to have more and more of those offspring with that variation for that to happen. So that long process of change over time to suit a habitat is called evolution. Okay, and I'm going to hold that up for you so you can see it a bit bigger because it's a really important word. Okay, so that's evolution, and if you've heard people say survival of the fittest before, that's a little bit what's meant by the example we've just shown you, because it is those animals that have the feature that helps them survive the best that pass it on, and they evolve to all have that. So the giraffes with the longer neck pass that feature on to their babies, and over time more and more giraffes had long necks. Okay, just like our guys here with their trunks and also with their ear size to help them. Okay, so that's evolution for you, but why is it important for us to know about that? Well, particularly as there's so many changes in the world at the minute, we need to know how quickly animals can adapt to different habitats and different changes in their habitats. Things like climate change are affecting their habitats, human activity is affecting their habitats, and we need to know not only how quickly they're likely to adapt to a change, but also what kind of changes they could potentially adapt to. Things like where it's getting hotter, African hunting dogs who live, again, in Africa, along with our African elephants and our giraffes that we've talked about, and the okapis. Because of that, they are unable to hunt when they would normally hunt for as long, and therefore they are unable to feed their babies as well. So we're having less and less African hunting dogs. So in our studies of our scientists, because we talked to you about the ZSL scientists before, who are doing all that work to help try and protect these animals, knowing how quickly animals can adapt and what they can adapt to can help us try and protect them in the long term. Now, before I move on to what our task is for you this week, based on our topic for this week, I would like to show you your work that you've sent us in for last week, because we're really impressed with how much you've done for us and your really hard work. Now, our first shout out must go to Dexter. I'm just going to grab one that I've dropped. Okay, so my first shout out is to Dexter, because Dexter sent us an amazing video, and his mum was a really good guinea pig, so she had her face painted as a tiger in the video while he told us lots of different facts about tigers, and we really enjoyed looking at that. So thank you very much for sending that in, Dexter. Now, my next one is by Alicia. And Alicia, can I tell you, I could not tell your picture from the real thing, because it is such a great drawing of a camel, and you've looked really carefully at those features of the camel for your drawing, and it's fantastic. So we loved it. Okay, so it's brilliant. Well done. And we also loved, William, your giraffe adaptation. Such a beautiful drawing, and your handwriting is lovely. You've taken a lot of time over that piece of work, making sure that all the information's in there, but in a really neat way as well. So thank you so much. That was great. So this week, your task is to write us a story, but the story is all about how your favourite animal evolved to have one of the features that it has that helps it survive in its habitat. So you can tell us the story in any way you like, but you need to tell us a story about how one of your favourite animal has evolved to be the way they are today. We've got our little youngest member of the herd, Elizabeth, here. She's just come to have a little listen. Maybe she'd like to write a story too, because she's having a little see what we're doing. She's very interested. As you can see, she's very cute. Okay. She's also very cheeky because one of her favourite things to do is play football, but actually she's not learned to share very well because she quite often sits on the football so that the others can't have a go. And when I say football, it's not like a little football like you or I would play with. It's a very big football that's elephant sized. So, but she's very cute and she knows it too. Hey Elizabeth. She wants to learn all about evolution as well because she's still at the age where she needs to be learning just like you and I are. Fantastic. Okay, so thank you very much, guys, for joining us today in week 6 of our online outreach. Next week is going to be a bit of a surprise where we're coming to you, but we hope you can join us again. But before we do that, can I remind you, any of your work you do, your stories for this week, or any tasks that you haven't sent us in yet, please email to us at our email address here, learning@zsl.org. Also remember, on our Twitter account at ZSL Learning, we are publishing new things daily for you to do while you're either at home or at school at the minute, but there are new learning activities on there all the time, so please do tune in. And the last thing for me to say to you is, obviously while we're not open, we are still caring for these guys. We do still need to look after our animals, so if there is any donation you can make or any way that you can help us, or you'd like to know more about our conservation work all around the world, please visit zsl.org/support our zoos to find out more about how you can help us while we're here. But it's been lovely to speak with you again, and I can't wait to speak to you next week. Bye.